It was a hot day in rural Texas, where fields stretched beyond the horizon and sparse trees cast short shadows. At the height of midday, the rescue headquarters
911,
received
what's
an
your
urgent
emergency?
call from an agitated farmer. A huge snake had already wrapped itself around a cow in his pasture and was about to swallow it whole. The situation was so unusual and threatening that the duty officers immediately sounded the alarm. The commander gave quick orders to assemble the team and check all the necessary equipment. The room was filled with the sound of squeaking shoes, the clicking of vests being fastened, and tense voices. Every rescuer understood that this was an extraordinary case and that they had to be prepared for any turn of events. Delay could cost the animal its life and pose a threat to people. The van with its flashing lights on soon drove down the dusty road toward the farm. Through the sunlight, reflecting off the metal and windows, the rescuers peered into the distance, where the roofs of the barn and frightened people were already visible. Ahead of them lay an extremely dangerous and unpredictable operation that they would never forget. When the van turned off the main road onto a narrow dirt track, the rescuers immediately noticed a crowd of farmers gathered in panic near the pasture. People were waving their arms, pointing at the field, and shouting loudly, as if trying to outshout each other. Their faces expressed a mixture of fear and helplessness. The rescuers jumped out of the car and immediately saw a horrific scene. A huge snake, incredibly massive, coiled in tight rings, had already wrapped itself around a cow and began to open its mouth so wide that it seemed as if the animal would disappear entirely into its black abyss. The animal mooed and desperately tried to break free, but the forces were unequal. The scene looked like something out of a nightmare. The ground around them was riddled with traces of the struggle. The cow had left furrows with its hooves, and the grass was trampled in chaotic patterns. Several farmers did not dare to approach, keeping their distance so as not to provoke the predator. Rescuers in bright vests stood nearby, assessing the situation. Their eyes darted between the snake, the cow, and possible courses of action. It was clear that a mistake could lead to tragedy. The spectacle became increasingly terrifying. The enormous snake had almost swallowed the cow whole. Its massive jaws closed around the animal's body so tightly that only its head and part of its torso were still sticking out. With each movement of the cow, its hoarse mooing grew weaker, and the slurping sound of the snake created an eerie backdrop to the scene. The farmers gathered nearby pressed their hands to their faces, unable to look away from the nightmare unfolding before their eyes. The rescuers approached, but stopped abruptly, exchanging brief glances. None of them had ever encountered anything like this before. The monster was not just huge. It looked like something out of ancient legends. Their tools, which could usually help in emergencies, seemed useless in the face of this power. The rescuers' eyes showed doubt, fear, and a sense of duty, but everyone understood that any wrong move could cost them, and the animal, their lives. The silence became unbearable. Only the rhythmic hissing of the snake and the desperate sounds of the cow filled the air. The rescuers began to whisper to each other, trying to come up with a plan, but all their ideas fell apart, one after another. Their forces were clearly unequal. The situation froze, as if time had slowed down, and it seemed that hope was disappearing with every breath. When the rescuers had almost resigned themselves to the impossibility of intervening, a sharp, piercing cry suddenly rang out over the village, echoing across the fields. Everyone nearby instinctively looked up, their breath catching in their throats. From the dazzling blue sky, like a messenger from heaven, a giant eagle swooped down, so massive that its wings blocked out part of the sun, casting a dark shadow over the scene. With a few powerful wing beats, it found itself directly above the monstrous snake, which was writhing around its prey. With incredible precision, the eagle sank its huge talons directly into the snake's neck. The earth seemed to shake from the blow. The snake hissed furiously, raising a cloud of dust, and began to thrash its entire body, unleashing its fury on its new enemy. Its long body lashed the ground, breaking bushes and kicking up clods of dirt. Rescuers and farmers, frozen a few meters away, could not take their eyes off this truly mythical scene. Hearts pounded in their chests, some cried out in horror, while others, on the contrary, cried out in admiration. At that moment, everyone understood. This was not just a random intervention. Nature itself had decided to intervene and restore balance. Before their eyes, a battle worthy of legends unfolded, and it seemed that the fate of the entire village depended on the outcome of this struggle. When the eagle, soaring from the heavens, carried the monster snake away into the air, the whole village seemed to freeze. Even the wind died down, leaving only the echoing beating of the rescuers' hearts. With a hoarse moo, the cow finally broke free from the deadly jaws and fell heavily to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Her body trembled with fear and pain. Her breathing was ragged, her eyes wide open, full of fear and exhaustion. The rescuers, without wasting a second, rushed to the animal, their boots clattering loudly on the dry ground. They carefully surrounded the cow, acting in perfect coordination. One of the rescuers knelt down next to her and put his hand on her neck, checking her pulse and breathing. Another began to carefully examine its sides and legs, looking for bite marks, bruises, and abrasions from the huge jaws. The cow sighed heavily, each breath accompanied by a painful groan, but there were no signs of fatal injuries. There were marks of pressure, bruises, and deep imprints of the snake's jaws on her body, but she was alive. The men looked at each other. Relief and awe flashed in their eyes. It was a miracle they had witnessed, and they knew that today they had saved not only an animal, but also their faith in the incredible forces of nature. The cow was gradually coming to. The rescuers took first aid kits out of their van and began to carefully treat her wounds. They applied bandages to the animal's body and covered the abrasions with special ointments to relieve inflammation and pain. They worked smoothly and intently, as if each of their hands and every movement were part of a single organism. The cow was breathing heavily, but her eyes were already showing signs of life and trust. The villagers gathered around, and their faces showed relief. They could see that the rescue had been successful. Finally, when the last bandages were secured and the cow was put on its feet, the farmers came closer. One of the old men, the animal's owner, thanked the rescuers with tears in his eyes, shaking each of their hands firmly. The cow staggered a few steps and trustingly pressed herself against her owner. The rescuers watched this moment, feeling a quiet pride in the work they had done. The sun was setting, painting the sky in golden tones, a symbol of the end of a difficult but successful day. In this silence, everyone understood. Today, people and nature had once again found their way to unity. Today, rescuers not only saved the animal's life, but also reminded us all that human strength lies in kindness and unity with nature. May such stories inspire us to appreciate every living creature. Thank you for watching until the end. Please like and subscribe to our channel to support us. See you next time.